Hello, my name is Alexandra Carade, and I'm an early childhood education business coach. In this video today, we'll learn about how to document expenses and prepare for monitoring for the Texas Workforce Commission's 2022 round of child care relief funding. In today's conversation, we'll discuss answers to questions such as, what terms do I need to comply with for the 2022 Child Care Relief Fund? How do I document my expenses? What should I expect if I'm selected for monitoring? And how can I get help? A selected group of child care providers will be required to participate in a TWC monitoring process, during which expenses will be reviewed to verify that funds were spent on allowable expenses. Whether you are selected for monitoring or not, child care programs are required to maintain records for 3 years after the relief fund ends. This includes receipts, invoices, and other documentation that supports how all funds were expended. As part of the 2022 Child Care Relief Funds, there are some federal requirements, terms and conditions that applicants must certify their compliance with in order to receive grant funding. First, healthcare practices. When open and providing services, childcare businesses must implement policies in line with the guidance and orders from corresponding state and local authorities, and to the greatest extent possible, implement policies in line with guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Childcare providers who are in good standing with licensing, specifically regarding their health practices, will be able to use their proof of good standing to verify this compliance. Second, wages and benefits. Each staff member must be paid at least the same amount in weekly wages and maintain the same benefits for the duration of the award. Providers may not involuntarily furlough employees from the date of application submission through the duration of the award. To be in compliance with the wages and benefits certification, you can compare your payroll records for any W-2 at the time of application to your payroll records at the time of monitoring. Third, tuition relief. The third certification is that, to the extent possible, childcare businesses must provide relief from co-payments and tuition payments for the families enrolled in the provider's program, prioritizing relief for families struggling to make these payments and families making less than 85% of the state median income for a family of the same size. More information about the Texas median income is available on Texas Workforce Commission's website. Now, to comply with the tuition relief certification, think about if there is an option for you to support families with children in your care with relief funding. If you have a tuition assistance policy in place already, keep a copy handy in case you need it. If you don't already have a policy in place, consider developing one. To learn more about how to develop a tuition assistance policy for your child care program, there is a guide, How Do I Create a Tuition Assistance Policy, available at childcare.texas.gov. Next, how do you document your expenses? When you are gathering documentation, you will need to make sure you have everything you need. First, you will need to figure out your past expenses. You can go month by month, looking back through your records, starting September 1st, 2021, to review receipts, bills, payments, and bank statements. You can find and keep your receipts. You should set up a system to properly document all past and future expenses. You must keep all your receipts for costs covered by this award. If you are selected for monitoring, you will need documentation of your spending. Whether you think you will be monitored or not, we highly recommend that you keep organized documentation of your expenses. If you are selected for monitoring, you will need to submit your receipts within 15 days. In addition to keeping your documentation organized in advance of monitoring requests, it is also a good idea to gather receipts for more expenses than you claimed reimbursement for, so you are covered if any of your expenses are ruled ineligible by TWC. Before finding your receipts, create a file or get a large manila envelope ready. It is important that you hold on to your receipts for 3 years. So you will want to have a way to keep these receipts safe until you need them. And so in keeping your organizational system, you will also want to create a backup of this important documentation. Think about creating a digital backup by either taking pictures of your receipts and proofs of payment or scanning your documentation. And finally, you will need to report on how you used already received CCRF funds. CCRF 2022 recipients will receive their total award across 4 equal quarterly payments. You will need to report on how you used each quarterly payment distribution. To be clear, after you successfully apply, there is no additional action necessary to receive your first payment, assuming that you are approved for funding. But in order to receive the second, third, and fourth quarterly payments of the 2022 CCRF, providers will have to first report on how they have used the CCRF funds they have already received. So you must report on how you spent your first payment before receiving your second. You have to report on how you spent your second payment before receiving your third, and so forth. Let's get into each of these steps in more depth. When you figure out your past expenses, make sure that you look for all types of receipts and documentation of payment. Month by month, look for your receipts, look at your credit card bills, look at your app-based payment systems such as Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal, bank statements and canceled checks, and third-party payroll systems. Make sure you look for common expenses. Start with your rent or mortgage and insurance, utility costs, facilities maintenance, payroll, employment and personnel costs, PPE, cleaning supplies and cleaning services, classroom and office expenses, and other goods and services. Here's a special note for home-based providers. As a home-based provider, some of your expenses are both personal and business-related. For instance, if your program operates out of your personal home, a portion of eligible home costs can count as a business expense. Similarly, if you use a phone for both personal and business purposes, a portion of your phone bill can be counted as business use. There are some easy methods to determine how much of shared personal and business costs can be reimbursed through the Child Care Relief Fund. First, let's start with the business use of phone. For phones, cell phones or home lines, you can determine what percentage of use was for business by looking at your bill and adding up the number of call minutes that were used for business purposes. Keep in mind, this should only be for the business owners or employees part of the bill. For example, Novelette looks back at her phone bill from last month and sees that it was $150. She sees that she made 30 calls that totaled 200 minutes, and that 20 of those 30 calls were for business-related purposes, and that those 20 calls totaled 120 minutes. If she divides her business-related phone call minutes, 120, by her total call minutes, 200, she gets 60%. Novelette can then multiply her total bill of $150 by 60% to determine her business use of phone. 60% of $150 is $90. So Novelette can report $90 of her phone bill from this month for the CCRF. Now, for business use of home. For home-based providers, if you regularly use your home for business and you are licensed or registered, you can be reimbursed for the cost of your home and other related expenses that you typically claim on your federal tax returns. Home-based providers can determine the business use of their home using the time-space calculation. This will help you figure out the percentage of your rent, mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and utility costs that can be covered by relief funding. For help determining your time-space percentage, see the time-space calculation guide or request a call with one of our business coaches. Now that you have a clear picture of your expenses, set aside receipts for expenses that are allowable under the 2022 Child Care Relief Fund, and we'll get more into that in the next slide. Keep more than your funding amount allows in case some expenses are found ineligible by the TWC monitoring team. Be sure to set up a system to properly document all the costs that you have gathered since September 1st, 2021, as well as any future costs incurred by May 31st, 2023. Ensure that all your receipts or other proofs of payment show that you paid the expense, what you paid for, unless it is very clear, such as a bill from your electric company, the amount you paid, the date you paid it, and a description of the item purchased or service received. Common examples of receipts that you may be collecting include itemized receipts from stores, a payment confirmation from the electric company or a canceled check, or a summary report from your payroll company. A pro tip is to search for your larger allowable expenses first. This can help you to streamline this process of collecting your receipts, because larger expenses like rent or payroll will take less time to use up funding than finding multiple individual receipts for smaller expenses, such as classroom supplies. Now, what are your allowable expenses? Allowable expenses include payroll and personnel costs, rent or mortgage, insurance and utilities, facilities maintenance, PPE, cleaning supplies and cleaning services, equipment and supplies needed to respond to COVID-19, and other goods and services for which you use CCRF funds. You will need to describe how you used them. It is important to know that you cannot claim expenses already paid for by the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, or any other stimulus or relief funding program. Once you have all your receipts and documentation, do make sure you create a backup. Store your documents of your expenses in a secure location. Consider backing up your receipts digitally by taking pictures of them with your cell phone or scanning them into your computer, just in case something happens to your original hard copies. And make sure you save photocopies in a secondary location. If you need any more assistance with documenting your expenses, feel free to book a free call with a business coach at childcare.texas.gov. You might be wondering, what should you expect if you are selected for monitoring? Here's a simple breakdown of the monitoring process, and once again, we'll go into each of these in more depth. First, you'll be notified if you're selected for monitoring because you'll receive an engagement letter, which will give instructions on how and where to submit your expenses. When you submit your expenses, you'll take your gathered receipts and submit them to TWC within 15 days of the creation of the engagement letter. TWC will then determine if each of your costs is allowable, adequately documented, and spent during the proper time period, which is September 1st, 2021 through May 23rd, 2023. Your TWC monitor will then put together a report of their findings and discuss this final report with you. If you are selected for monitoring, you will first receive an engagement letter which informs you that you have been selected and gives you instructions on how and where to submit your expenses. You will also receive, if you are selected, a document request list, which outlines categories of receipts requested, as well as instructions to submit documentation by mail or through the online system, SharePoint. The funding categories under which you will need to submit expenses are these listed here: salaries and/or personnel costs, utilities, rent, mortgage, or property taxes, cleaning and sanitation, PPE, maintenance, food, non-cleaning supplies, insurance, and there is a miscellaneous category. If a document submitted does not match any of the listed categories, but is still eligible under the program, you will categorize the receipt under miscellaneous. Once TWC has received your documentation, they will review your expenses to ensure that each expense is allowable, adequately documented, and incurred during the proper time period, which is September 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. If an expense is allowable, it means it is necessary to maintain or resume operations of your program, including fixed costs and increased operating expenses. For something to be adequately documented, the documentation must clearly show who you paid, how much you paid, when you paid it, and what you paid for, and that you paid for the expense. TWC may reach out to you for more information about your expenses or documentation during this process if they have any questions as to whether your expenses were allowable, adequately documented, or incurred between the appropriate time period, September 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. Finally, your TWC monitor will compose a final report. In some cases, TWC may find that some of your expenses are ineligible for reimbursement through the Relief Fund. We recommend gathering more receipts than you will need, just in case some of your costs are not allowed. You can register to meet with a coach to help you to identify and document your costs. For more information on monitoring assistance, please see the full Documenting Expenses and Preparing for Monitoring guide, available at childcare.texas.gov. If you're wondering how you can get help, there are resources available for you. Again, the Documenting Expenses and Preparing for Monitoring guide is available at childcare.texas.gov. You can also prepare with your business coach, who can help with monitoring assistance and provide you with links to help and other resources in English and Spanish. You can register for no-cost business coaching at childcare.texas.gov. And for more updates on the 2022 Child Care Relief Funds, visit childcare.texas.gov/CCRF 2022 update. Best of luck as you continue to gather your documents and prepare to apply for the 2022 CCRF.